I'm Sam Kay from PwC. I am PwC's regulatory expert, and I have a huge interest in FMD. I really do feel like it's a fast-moving field with great opportunity, but also great challenges. So how it's going to work is I'm going to get each panelist to have a small presentation, should we say, conversation on their field of interest within serialization.
If you remember when they launched the Hubble telescope, it took quite good pictures of the universe, but they're a bit fuzzy. The difference with serialization versus the batch that we have at the moment is 4 orders of magnitude of visibility in the supply chain. If you think of a batch as a few thousand packs, that's the level of visibility we have today in our supply chain. We can't tell within that number which one's which. With serialization, we laser right down to the pack. And that starts to be able to drive other things we can do in the supply chain, like linking that level of resolution to other parameters, like the temperature profile of that particular consignment. So you can have a temperature logger on the pallet, and you can associate the data with all of the data on that logger right down to the pack. So you're starting to get really fine-grained resolution on all sorts of other areas of risk in our big Venn diagram of supply chain risk in pharma that we don't have today, all because we put a few black dots on the box. So I think, as the other speakers have said, there's a whole bunch of painful change management stuff to do with serialization, and it really is a change management program with black dots involved. It's much less to do with the mechanics of printing and vision systems and cloud software than it is to do with changing the behaviors of individual human beings when they see a box with that code on. And that's where the hard part comes. That's where the hard part comes in drug companies, where the hard part comes in pharmacies. If somebody on a production line in a manufacturer takes a pack off the line today and puts it back in the wrong order of the stream of packs, it doesn't matter because they're all going in a box at the end, they're all part of the same batch. If they do that in March and they put that pack back wrongly, it screws up all of the information downstream, particularly if that company is aggregating their data into shipper cartons and pallets, because suddenly there's a box that's in the wrong place. So we have to train everybody as well as putting new systems in, and that's not cheap. It needs to be done repeatedly. There's a whole host of things that we have to think about as an industry that we do differently after we start doing this properly. And I think we're just, as several people have said, we're at the beginning of this journey. This is definitely not something that's going to be finished in February with all the wishful thinking in the world. This is just the tip of a very long process. But I think the outcome is equally exciting. If you think of that 4 orders of magnitude gain for a start in visibility, I think we can start to think about how do we get more efficient. If I'm a pharmacy, how can I get more insight into what's my peak time of day for prescription pickup? What's my percentage of unpicked up prescriptions that I've bagged and made in advance? Is that different store by store? Are there some stores which are quite efficient, some stores which are not so good? How can I get best practice across my organization? We can start to harvest all of that information because we're collecting information pack by pack, and we're forcing people to think about the processes that they have in order to get ready for serialization that are by accident in some ways generating improvements in efficiency. So I think it's a bit optimistic to say this is a rosy dawn and it's all going to be fabulous next year, but I wouldn't take the pessimistic view that this is just a cost and we all just have to swallow it and get on with it. There is definite benefit there. Some of it may have to be dug out of the earth. It's not shiny diamonds laid on the top. But I think if we take the effort to do that, then we're improving patient safety fundamentally. This is all about, eventually, a global traceability system for drugs. That's the end game. The UK is relatively privileged. Most of Europe's relatively privileged. Calling this the Falsified Medicines Directive, arguably, was a duff move. If we called it the Digital Medicines Directive, it would have been more accurate. You'd be pretty unlucky to go to Boots around the corner and get a fake medicine. If you go to a pharmacy in Africa, there was a study published very recently that said your chances of getting a fake antibiotic are 1 in 7. 14%. That's the end game, is protecting those lives by making the learnings that we've made here at relatively great expense cheaply available in markets where this is a life and death issue.